Alrighty. We'll officially get started. There might be a couple more folks trickling in, but don't want to make you wait any longer. So welcome to tonight's live student panel. My name is Elizabeth Allaby. I'm an admissions counselor at Maine Maritime Academy, and I'm joined by Kate Kana. She's
Hello.
Also an admissions counselor at MMA. So we're here basically to, help organize the event and ask all of your really great questions to all of our regimental students that we have lined up. Before we launch into the live student panel, just a couple of quick things that I wanted to let you all know. So we're in what's called a webinar. Maybe some of you have noticed that, I'm not sure if you can see yourself or not. I'm not sure exactly how it works for your end. But the important thing is, please interact with us. This is why we're here. This is why we're doing it live. The way to interact with us is just go ahead and type out your questions either down in the live chat. You can also write a Q&A. We'll get to them in as timely of a manner as we can. We might save them to ask live to have our panelists answer, but that's the best way to interact, is go ahead and type. That way we can make sure that we hear from all of you. What I'm going to do is go ahead and hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. So if you all wouldn't mind saying, sort of the standard information, your name, where you are from, what year you are in, your major, things of that nature, anything else you want to add, just to go ahead and round out a little bit about you. Would you like to start, Joe?
Sure. So hello, I'm Joseph Van Ness. I'm here at Maine Maritime in the major called VOT. I'm also minoring in business, which I highly recommend. If you come here, get a couple minors, great, always help you more. And I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm a junior here.
Joe, can you just explain to everybody what VOT is and whether it's required to be in the regiment or not?
Okay, yes. So in VOT, you do not have to be in the regiment. I chose to be in the regiment so I can get more leadership opportunities, because when you're not in the regiment, you still have leadership opportunities, but there is not as, you don't get as many opportunities. So in vessel operations and technology, or VOT, you still get your bachelor's degree, but you do not get your unlimited license. So you can test for a 1,600 ton mate's license or a 500 ton mate's license. So if you want to go on smaller vessels, be more shoreside or on rivers, definitely the license and degree to go into.
Great, thank you. Stephen, you want to kick it off?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Stephen Wright is my name. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. I hail from New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, to be exact. I am attending Maine Maritime Academy to get a degree in marine transportation operations. And for anybody who might have any questions as far as non-trad is concerned, I am your non-traditional regimental student. So feel free to ask anything that you might have come to mind.
Charlie, you're up next.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Simpson. Thank you all for showing up tonight. I am from Woolwich, Maine, which is right next to Bath, Maine, because a lot of people don't know where that is, apparently. And I am majoring in marine engineering technology, and I have a minor in naval architecture, which I highly recommend for you engineers out there, because it gives you a real look at the physics behind shipbuilding and why ships float the way they do. Yeah, if you have any questions about engineering, I'm your guy.
Arden, why don't you cap it off here?
Hi, everybody. So glad to be here. My name is Arden Aston, and I'm a marine transportation operations major, and I'm minoring in sustainability. So I'm hoping to pave a career that aligns with my passion for taking care of the environment and the planet. I'm also in the regiment. I'm not in uniform. I apologize. If there's any girls out there want to know what it's like, hit me up. I'm your girl.
Arden, can you tell us what year you are?
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm a freshman, first year.
First-hand experience, yeah.
So one thing I wanted to do is just make this a little bit more interactive. I'm going to throw out a poll there. Anybody can vote, including you panelists, but I just am a little bit curious about who's in our audience. So if you guys don't mind answering, go for it. What year are you in school? We just kind of want to know, hey, who we're talking to. And that way it makes it a little bit more interactive for you. Oh, you guys are quick. Gotta commend you all. But, so it looks like we have a lot of seniors out there. Over half of you are seniors, a third of you are juniors. I'm happy to see we have a couple students who would be considered transfer students. So certainly be sure to ask Stephen any of your non-traditional questions if you happen to have any. I'm gonna go ahead and end this poll. I've got one more for you. And just what are you interested in studying? So what I've done is I've listed out sort of our primary categories: marine engineering, marine transportation. That also includes Joe's major, vessel operations and technology, ocean studies, international business and logistics. I'm calling out Joe again, his minor. You can get a major in that as well here. Or maybe you just have no idea, and that's a great place to be. This is why you come to events like this. So, wow. So Charlie, get ready. Over half of our attendees are interested in marine engineering.
You know it.
With
That's the way to be.
transportation on a close second. So
Yeah.
Hey,
awesome.
transportation is just as good. They
Yep,
they get the shit to where it's going.
exactly. And it looks like about 14% of our participants aren't quite sure what they're interested in. And so, sit back, relax, and we'll just.
yeah,
Yes,
so
it
feel
is.
free as the panelists to dive into what makes your major unique at the same time.
Alrighty. So with no further ado, we'll get right on into it. Kate, would you like to ask the first question to our panelists?
Sure. Well, I'm going to kind of throw out an easy one right now while we kind of ramp up the regimental portion. And this is, why did you choose Maine Maritime Academy? What is it about our school that you chose? I'm going to just start in the order that my screen is in, and it's Joe, you're up first.
Okay. So I go to Savannah, Georgia every year since, I don't know, probably elementary school. And every year I watched all these tugboats go up and down the Savannah River, and I just got inspired. So I called my favorite tugboat company, and they gave me a tour of their tugs. And I said, how do I get into this? And they actually specifically said, go to Maine Maritime Academy. So I applied at like SUNY and Mass, but ultimately I was accepted here. So I came to Maine Maritime Academy, and it's been the best decision. Even after visiting all the other academy campuses, this one felt more like home, especially with a small town. So I really, that was the best decision I've made.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. Stephen, why don't you go next?
Sure. My story is actually a little bit longer. It began with me while I was out on deployment in the military. I'm prior Navy, spent a lot of time out at sea on ships. So I kind of grew. It grew on me a little bit as far as the deck lifestyle in general. And I kind of wanted to take it to a new level. So I wanted to go and get my degree in marine transportation operations so that I could become an officer and work in the maritime field. Maine Maritime Academy wasn't originally on my list when I first started doing research because I was not aware of the school. And then I had an officer who I looked up to. He was kind of like a mentor for me that attended Maine Maritime Academy. My first choice was Sundy Maritime Academy because it's closer to where I lived. And then my second choice was Texas A&M because I had a friend that lived out there. So living conditions would have been pretty good if I had chosen there. But the officer suggested I look into Maine Maritime Academy. They explained that it's a very small school, but it's an extremely close-knit group. And the bond between the student and the professor is second to none. So I gave it a little bit of a search and started to realize that there's a lot of perks to this school in general. One of the highest percentages for employment after graduation, making about $75K plus a year for anybody who's looking to go into this field just for the money itself. So that immediately struck beautifully to me. And then I reached out, and one of the admissions advisors, Mrs. Kelly, she immediately got back in touch with me. And I mean, while I was out on deployment, she was consistently reaching out to me, very, very persistent in making sure that the entire process for filling out the applications and any questions that I might have had, she was always able to reach out to me and make sure that I was getting all of the information that I needed. So compared to any other school, no other school was doing that I had reached out to as far as SUNY or Texas A&M. Maine Maritime Academy the personnel was always making sure that I had the information that I needed. So that immediately drew my attention. And from that point moving forward, I was like, okay, this seems like the school that's for somebody who's been out of school for 10 plus years. This seems like it would be the place that I could go to. And I know that I would be able to get the help that I needed in order to get caught back up on things as far as time management was concerned, as far as the school curriculum and everything like that. So it was a personnel and the very prestigious background that follows me in Maritime Academy in general across the board is what really attracted me to the school.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Stephen. Charlie, you're up next.
Well, I came here for a couple of reasons. My father graduated from here, and he is one of the most incredible engineers that I know. He is incredibly smart, and not because he went to the school, but just because he is. And the school really taught him a lot. I also went here because I kind of grew up around ships and boats, and I've always been really, really fascinated with just everything that goes into building them and just how they operate, because you'd be surprised the process that you go through when designing and operating a ship. It's really quite miraculous that it can even be done. And I just wanted to learn more about that. And I wanted to have skills that would carry me for the rest of my life.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. Arden, you're up.
Why did I choose Maine Maritime? Well, for starters, I grew up on a sailboat and I absolutely love sailing. This is my greatest passion. So I knew that I'd want a career in this sort of field because I didn't see myself going to a regular university, going after a regular 9-to-5 job. I had to be doing something on boats, and I looked at Sundy Maritime because originally I'm from New York and it's close. But honestly, same as Steve said, like I didn't feel supported by the faculty as I did here, and that was super appealing. And I'm seeing that as a student here, how the faculty, you just get so much support from the professors, everyone in admissions, everybody. Like we're all a team here, and I wasn't getting that same energy from the other maritime academies. And I see that there's a question here. I figure I'd answer it while I'm talking now. If I go into the chat, I thought there was a question from Ashley. Yeah, Ashley Holler. So there's always that intimidation of like, wow, there's so many guys and there's so few girls, but
Arden, I'm going to stop you for a second. You can see the question, but if you can just read the question out to everybody, not everybody can see what the question was.
Okay, sorry. So the question is, Arden, how is it adjusting to the male to female ratio? Was it hard to make friends? It hasn't been hard making friends. The camaraderie in the regiment has really served me well, and I've made some incredible friendships just in my freshman year that I'll probably keep the rest of my life, honestly. And yes, there is that intimidating male to female ratio, but don't let it get in your way. Don't let it stop you from pursuing your career. And yes, it's super challenging being one girl in a classroom of 20 guys all the time, but it's very rewarding. So you just got to get what you want no matter what. And that's, yeah. Anyway, I wish you the best of luck on your decision, Ashley.
That's a great answer. And I had seen one question come through sort of asking about the demographics of our campus, of our regiment. And I would say within the regiment, Kate, is this correct? We're about 2 to 3% female, and that number is changing every year as more females enter the maritime industry and as they enter the STEM field. Across our campus as a whole, we have about 1,000 students, and roughly 60% are in the regiment. So we have a mixture of regimental and non-regimental students. Tonight, we're featuring our regimental students and kind of including voluntary regimental students like Joe, for example, whose majors don't require being in the regiment, but they choose to be in it. So hopefully that sort of answers that question for you, but keep them coming, these are great. The next one that I sort of wanted to ask out was, you know, how is life in the regiment? What makes being a regimental student on campus different than a non-regimental student? So sort of what's a day in the life like of a regimental student? And maybe what would be interesting, Charlie, now that you're a senior, you know, how is that different than being a freshman? You know, Joe, how is it different if you are non-regimental versus regimental? Stephen, coming in as, you know, a veteran, how did that differ for your training? So those are sort of the thoughts that I'll start you off with. But because I called on Charlie first, go for it.
Ready. Well, freshman year, I think just like any college, it's always going to be a little tough at first. The transition from high school to college is always rough. I think definitely the transition from high school to regiment was a little bit, it wasn't like more than I expected. It was just, it was different from what I expected. And you learn quick how to, you know, keep up with everything. You know, I'd say the best advice I could give anyone coming in is just, you know, really focus on your time management and just kind of keep your head down and your nose to the grindstone. And as you get through, things just get easier. I mean, truth be told, your workload does become more advanced, and you get more homework. But the initial, you know, those initial 6 weeks where you really are, you know, pressed hard, really kind of shape you up for the rest of your time here. And it certainly has helped me a lot in my time management and my work ethic. So overall, I'd say, you know, freshman year is definitely the hardest, but it makes every year that much easier.
That's a fantastic answer. And that's kind of goes hand in hand with something new you try out, right? That's never as hard as the first day.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
At least that's my experience. These guys are teaching me how to use Instagram.
And you'll make a lot of really good friends because, you know, mutual suffering is something that makes quick friends fast.
Arden, do you want to go next since you are very fresh out of RPT?
Yeah, sure. I guess, well, I will note that my RPT experience was different from normal because of COVID. So there were things that we had to work around. So like my experience probably isn't the same as Charlie's was when he was a freshman. But it, you know, it's like hitting a brick wall and you're like, whoa, you have all this change, but you learn so much from it. And it really prepared me for being a midshipman in the regiment. And right now it's kind of hard. Like there's a lot of pathways that I can't walk on, and like I still have privileges that I don't have privileges. I don't have the same amount of privileges as like sophomore, junior, senior, etc. It gets easier and easier the longer you're in. But all in all, being in the regiment has helped me with learning how to manage my time, professionalism, and just being able to manage multiple things at once, because you're not just doing university, you're doing regimental, sports, clubs, all of that. And it's good for you because it's a good habit to build.
One thing I wanted to note, just in case it wasn't clear, RPT stands for Regimental Preparatory Training. It's a 10-day training period that occurs for freshmen before their fall semester to get them oriented and acquainted to all things regiment. But how about you, Stephen? I know you are also fresh out of RPT.
Yes, well, I would have to admit that my experience is not going to sound anything like everyone else's, because of the fact that we kind of go through our own process of RPT, which is actual boot camp in the military, and it's about 2.5 months long and far more strenuous. And it basically, it feels like being locked down in jail. However, this experience was pretty interesting for me because it allowed me the opportunity to do exactly what it was that I was doing in the military, and that's to kind of uplift the younger generation who might feel like it is a struggle and they don't understand the message coming from going through a process like this. A lot of people think that some of the more rigorous or tedious assignments and having to follow strict curriculum and strict scheduling, they find it as a nuisance in a way, and it can be a little bit of an irritation. But if you pay attention to the lesson that's being taught, then you can get a lot out of it. And for myself, while I was going through the process, it was extremely irritating for me because once you've done boot camp in the military, you don't want to do it again. So I came to Maine Maritime Academy really not wanting to do it, but once I was officially in it, getting to kind of bond with the other guys, the younger guys, and kind of be a mentor for them. It was an awesome experience, just as it was in the military. Getting out of the military, one of the things that I miss most about the military is being a supervisor and a mentor, a training petty officer for a lot of the newer generation guys that were coming into the military. So I kind of got to do it during RPT. I had a lot of conversations with some of the younger guys that were coming in from high school. So that's kind of how my experience went. I felt like more the mentor for my specific group of personnel. So I did cherish that. The regiment itself, like Arden said, it was different for our group, so I can't speak to how it's been done in the past, and I know that there will be changes for the future coming up. That should be a lot more beneficial for personnel that are coming in. But so a few things that I can say is it will definitely it will teach you camaraderie. It will teach you resilience. It will teach you very, very good time management skills because I mean, when you're dealing with the regiment itself, you really don't have much of a choice. You will learn time management, and it will prove very, very beneficial. It will teach you how to be a sailor, whether you are in the deck department as a marine transportation operations or an engineer, and don't plan on going out at sea. At some point, you might decide that you do want to go out at sea, but it teaches you how to be a sailor. It teaches you how to be a team player because that's what life is all about when you're out at sea. You have that small group of personnel, and that's really all you have for about 45 days. The longest I've been out at sea on a deployment without stopping in port is like 72 days. And it can get a little hectic being around the same people over and over and over again all the time, but it trains you for that possibility. And I think that's the biggest thing that I can say that comes out of the regiment for myself is the ability to adapt to situations like that. Look forward to the lessons that you can learn from it because it becomes a part of your lifestyle. And I cherish that most about the regiment, about boot camp itself, and that whole process and the way that is all broken down is it becomes a lifestyle for you. And there's a lot that you can learn from it that you can carry over into your adulthood.
Thank you. That's an awesome answer. And that kind of ties in. There had been a question that came through. How do you do academics, regiment, extracurriculars? And I think Stephen was right on the money. It's kind of built in to learn all those different time management skills.
And another, just to kind of elaborate a little bit more, you will your group that you're going to be in there with. Somebody asked about the transition from high school into this process. You're going to be going through this with a lot of other people who are also transitioning as well. This is where the new bonds are built the same way you did back in high school. You did it in elementary school, and in this process it'll be the same exact things. You will end up meeting a lot of people that will be lifetime friends along with you. And then even after you graduate, those personnel, they become, networking is very, very important in this field and in any field, in any business field, any field that you work in. These people are going to become the people that you are going to be working with for lifetimes. So you'll be able to get through the process. You'll be able to learn how to adapt as far as time is concerned. I like I said before, I was out of school for over 10 years. So a lot of even for me, a lot of the information in terms of the education itself is a struggle for me to catch up. But I mean, I have tons of people who are consistently, helping me out and making sure that I'm catching the information the way that I'm supposed to. Arden, I actually come to her when I have questions about a lot of different things that, I may have forgotten over this 10-year span. So you will have people that's going to push you, and they're going to carry you along with them. So those bonds that you're going to build, that networking that you're going to have, is going to be what boosts you to excellence through the regimental program.
Awesome. Thank you for that add-on. All right, Joe, before we forget about the voluntary reg side.
Okay, so what it's like to be in the regiment as voluntary, I feel a lot more proud of myself, actually, especially because I do not have to be doing this. I love putting my uniform on every day, and I love it. It's just such a huge sense of pride. And, being voluntarily in the reg it's no different than if you're required to be in the regiment. You still have that brotherhood. You still make all these great friends, and you gain, like I said, a lot of these leadership skills that you would normally not be able to maybe gain as much of as a non-reg. So like being in the regiment's pushed me out of my comfort zone like a lot, and it's made me grow so much, which has been phenomenal because, you know, once I got out in industry now, I've, you know, felt the pressures of having to lead or whatever. Now I can just bring it out into where it really, really matters. So I've been really enjoying the voluntary. I used to be a non-reg, and I just wanted to be part of all that, you know, all that brotherhood. So I joined my second year here.
Well, thank you guys all for that. I just wanted to say that I remember, Joe, after that first year that you had completed the regiment, I saw you in the hallway and I asked how you were doing, and you just said, I am so proud of myself for doing this. And I just wanted to mention that because it is, you guys are going through so much, and it is something to be proud of. And so even though we are in the admissions side and we see you guys come in, we follow you through your next 4 years, and we're checking in with you guys in the hallway just to make sure that you're doing okay, because you're doing a lot. It's pretty amazing. So I'm going to throw the next question out at you. And I've noticed it coming in a couple of questions slightly worded differently. But basically the general gist is, what is it like balancing school and the regiment? You can go to a school as a traditional college student, but you're also coming in with this extra component of the regiment. And what is that like? What is that like balancing everything in terms of those extra commitments? So anybody want to go first? Anybody?
I mean, I guess I'll go first.
Go for it, Joe.
So balancing school and the regiment, initially it was overwhelming. So I had to start thinking of ways to start managing my time better. And what I started doing was actually make a plan of the day every single day. And I just followed that step by step, and it turns out great. I actually find myself having time for myself now. So yeah, just learn the time management and make like plans of the day, and you can seriously just stay on track and execute your plans, and it's great. Not as bad as it seems, so.
Well, thank you. That's great. Charlie, you want to go next?
Sure. My strategy, unfortunately, wasn't as organized as Joe's. It kind of is now. I've kind of had to force to do that sort of a technique, which really does work, trust me. But freshman year, you know, like one of the lieutenants said, it's only a lot of work if you do it. So I think I just, you know, you just kind of get down and do it. I think what I would do is I would make sure to find out before muster every morning what assignments were due that day, and then I would dedicate all free time I had to doing those aside from school. And you know, after a while, I began to become a faster and faster worker, and I was able to get ahead on my schoolwork, and then, you know, I was able to have a lot of free time for myself to just kind of relax. And I think overall, you know, your best bet is just to you know, take really, really good notes in class, and you know, even like stay after class sometimes to chat with the professors and the teachers, and just trying to build a relationship with them, because you'd be surprised how far that goes, you know, when it comes to asking help later on. Because, you know, it's not that they don't want to give help, it's that, you know, if you build a relationship with them, it's easier for them to understand how like what type of help you need, which I find to be really, really important. So I guess, you know, just, yeah, stay on top of it, and you know, stay focused.
It's an incredibly good point. The time management skills that you guys are learning are going to take you into the rest of your life and be successful. I'm going to keep going kind of around in the circle on my screen. Arden, why don't you go next?
Sure. I will say that don't let it scare you. It's completely 100% possible, and we're all doing it, so you can do it. Right now, I'm on the sailing team. I'm doing pre-cruise for our next freshman cruise. So between like our freshman year and sophomore year, we're going to go on the TSOM, and we have a bunch of work to do beforehand that we need to pass. And it's just great. Learning a lot. Taking 19 credits, managing a club, helping admissions, working for admissions here. And it's 100% possible. And yeah, you will learn the steps along the way, and you will make the mistakes and learn from them. I know that I've made mistakes with my time management of like, oh, I slept 5 hours because I was studying for an exam and I didn't do too good on that exam the next day. Get more sleep. Manage your time whenever you have free time. Hop on that homework, hop on that studying, and make sure that you're taking care of yourself first at the same time. So it's 100% possible, and you'll be better because of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Arden. Stephen, you're rounding out the crew here.
Okay. So last semester, my answer probably would have been a lot different than what it is this semester.
Perfect.
I'm also going through pre-cruise. So it has ramped things up a lot. And I was not expecting it this semester, but I'm the type of person I'm gonna go with the flow kind of guy. So if the flow is running rapidly, then I'm just gonna have to run rapidly. And if it's relaxed, then I'll be a little bit more relaxed. Everybody's version of time management is different. At the beginning of semesters, we do get our syllabuses. We do get a syllabus from the professors, which explains what is going to be happening during which week, which can help you to kind of prepare for what's to come. So as far as readings is concerned, I like to make sure that my readings are done, at least a day before class comes around. So that helps me out. I don't necessarily write out my schedule ahead of time. I kind of just go back and I'll check and see, okay, what's going to be happening. Within a 2-day period, I'll kind of double back and check in terms of that. But I really just kind of go with the flow when it comes to the schedule. And again, if it ramps up, then I just kind of ramp up my time. And thanks to the military, once again, I could always kind of revert my experience back to that. I'm used to operating on very, very little sleep. So if I have to be up super late studying for a long time, or if I have a 5-page paper that I need to be focusing on or something like that, then I will gladly give up the sleep to make sure that I get it done. As long as it gets done, that's kind of just how I go about it. But it really depends on, again, you just have to figure out when it comes to the time management, in terms of the workload that you have to figure out what works for you. But if you know that you are an extreme procrastinator, which they do exist, sometimes I can be a procrastinator myself. If you know that that's a habit of yours, and you need to identify what that habit is, and then put certain rubrics and tools into place that can kind of help you to keep that at as much of a minimal as possible. But I'm pretty sure people know what has to be turned in, what has to be done. Some people know how to operate under pressure. I can operate under pressure, which is why I kind of just go with the flow. If operating under pressure is not what you're good at and is going to affect you in a negative way, then you should know, and you will learn to make adjustments so that you can do better or keep up as the semester is progressing. So as Arden and everyone else has said, if we are here and able to do it, me being 10 years removed from school and you guys just coming out of high school, and coming into this, or my non-triad personnel that might be a little bit worried because they've been out of school for a while as well. I'm managing pretty well. And a lot of the other non-triad personnel that I share these experiences with, they are managing pretty well. And once again, like I said, in terms of the time management and in terms of the workload and everything like that, you're going to have people there that's going to have your back. So if you don't know how to properly manage it, someone's going to help you learn how to properly manage, and that's going to benefit you a lot as you continue to get grow older and older in this process. And that's pretty much all I have. It really varies. It varies. Just figure out what works best for you. Please figure out what works best for you, and apply it, and you will be successful. I can promise you that.
That's a great answer. I'm gonna
something I'd like to add real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this may not work for everybody. It works for me. And a strategy I kind of found useful was if you establish a goal in your mind of what you want to achieve by doing your homework, it makes it so much easier. Like my freshman and sophomore year, I wanted to do really, really well so I could get a good cadet shipping billet. So I worked super hard on my work every single night with that in mind to try to get the best grade I could get. So I could, because your cadet shipping billet is based off of your ranking in your class. And there's no bad cadet shipping billet, but it's always kind of nice to be at the top, so to have first pick. And that's always a really good goal to have. And then moving forward from that, just, you know, wanting to learn as much as you can before you get into industry, because, you know, there's nothing, you know, there's no harm in learning a little bit extra.
Those are all fantastic answers. I'm gonna change tack because I've seen this question come through a couple of times. And I will preface with, I apologize that I don't have the specific demographic numbers off the top of my head. I can certainly get those for you. If I'll throw my email in the chat if you want to email me. But from your perspective, how would you answer the question, what is the racial demographics of our student body? Anybody wants to try to take a stab at that one? It's a tough one. So one thing I will say is the maritime industry historically predominantly has been mostly white. That is also changing, as you can see right here with our panelists and our demographics. And Maine as a state is also quite a white state. It's neither bad nor good, it's just sort of how it is. I will say that I'm noticing we are getting more and more applicants from different minority persuasions. So it is truly changing. I can kind of feel it coming. One thing that I'm noticing too is we're getting quite a few bilingual applicants who come from Spanish and English backgrounds. And I can think of quite a few off the top of my head on campus already. But like I said, those specific numbers, I apologize, I don't have those ready for you. You guys want to add anything to that? I didn't want to ignore that question. It felt like an important question to address.
My roommate for 2 years and one of my closest friends is from India, and he's a great guy, and he's extraordinarily, you know, intelligent and just a well-rounded person. He's in ROTC, and he's actually going on to active duty, and he's super proud of him, and so am I. So, you know, he was from halfway across the world, and, you know, he was just, he was a great guy, and everyone loves him.
Awesome. And that sort of answers the question too. Somebody had asked, do we have students from foreign countries? We do have a selection of international students. The tricky thing is because we offer the US Coast Guard licenses, not everybody's home country accepts that license. That's the sticking point. So for example, we've had an applicant from Germany, but the German government doesn't recognize the US Coast Guard license. It's a little bit like if you know of a teacher, for example, who's got a teaching license in Maine and then they moved to California and now they have to get a new license. But yeah, go ahead. One of you wanted to answer.
There's also one of my non-trad peers that's currently attending the school as well is from Kuwait. And the reason that he actually is going to school out here is because he cannot get the Marine Transportation Operations degree in Kuwait. So he came to this school. So yes, this is quite, I mean, as far as the ethnic background is concerned, in the maritime field itself, you're going to be experiencing people from all different backgrounds. One thing that I can say about the school itself, and for me, with everything that's been going on in the world today, I must admit, before coming here, I was a little bit worried because of the background itself, but everyone has been super welcoming. I mean, as far as the ethnicity is concerned, it's like it doesn't even matter here whatsoever. And I've grown to love diversity itself. I mean, I love people from all different backgrounds. There's so much to learn from a bunch of different people that comes from many different backgrounds. My guy from Kuwait, really good friends. I love hearing about his stories from over there. So don't be too worried about the demographics. That everybody loves everybody as far as I've experienced out here. And then again, there's so much to learn. Make friends with people from all different backgrounds. I'm telling you, it's going to be an awesome experience for you. Absolutely.
Thank you. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on because I didn't want that to take up the rest of our time together, and so many other questions are just pouring in. I'm going to ask what I think is a tough one. So are you all ready? What is your favorite aspect of being in the regiment, and what is the most challenging aspect of being in the regiment? You can think of it as your high and your low.
I think my favorite aspect of being in the regiment is kind of how it's like a brother and sisterhood in a way. Like it's like its own fraternity, but it's not. And you know, it kind of, everyone who's in the regiment is just kind of brought closer because we're all kind of, you know, pursuing a common goal. And we're not competing against each other per se, but we're really helping each other along. And I find that a lot of the classes that I've taken that are prominently regimental student based, even though there are some non-trads, I mean, and non-trads, but non-reg, I find that we tend to be able to work really, really well together, and we make really, really good study groups. An aspect that I don't like so much is, I guess, I'd say more in the beginning, how much time I had to devote to the regiment that pulled me away from my schoolwork. Because in my eyes, school is the most important thing while you're here. And I feel that the regiment will come second, but that's not always the case. And so that made it certainly challenging, but you know, I have gotten past those challenges, and so will you. And I think I could speak for everybody when, you know, say that, you know, everyone who's in the regiment is glad that they're in the regiment.
Yeah,
That's a great one. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I think I'd start off with my least favorite thing, is how much time it can take, especially if you want to dedicate some more of your time. But like in your freshman year, you will be tired. It's designed to make you tired and make you kind of figure out and see how you respond to being tired and put under pressure. And yeah, it's annoying, and you don't understand. Actually, as a freshman, you're not going to understand, why am I squaring my corners or doing this and that? When you go on a ship and you realize, okay, I was purposely tired for this reason, because on my ship, I worked at least minimum of 12 hours every single day for my internship, or cadet shipping, I guess you can call it. So, you know, feeling how it really is. And, I was also, put under a lot of pressure as well. So feeling it before you got in industry, that's kind of also the thing. Even though it's a bad thing, I thought initially, it actually turned out.
Joe, I think we might have lost you. Oh, maybe he's coming back.
Ship I get from this, because now I'm in something called the wedge here. So that's like the student leadership. We're up at the higher post, above most of the students here. So we kind of run the show now. That's great.
Joe, I'm going to come back to the wedge in just a moment. So I'm glad that you
Okay.
mentioned that.
Good.
Stephen?
Okay. I think what I like the most about the regimental program itself is I like the blueprint. I like the fact that the entire blueprint is pretty much laid out for you. Everything from your pre-cruise and your summer cruise, it's all laid out. Your cadet shipping cruise, which will be I believe around your junior year, also laid out. Your lifeboat exam, the firefighting, the live fire exercise that you have to do, everything that the Coast Guard requires of you in order to get this license, and even taking the licensing exam at the end of your years at the school. I like the fact that all of that is laid out for you. You really don't have to do too much of researching and running around to try and figure out how to do this or how to do that. It's for the most part, it's really laid out for you. So it's an easy climb to success. All you got to do is just follow the rubric. What I dislike about it, I can't even say that there's too much of a dislike, because again, this is all, as far as I'm concerned, it's just the military again, in a way, a much lighter version of it. But one of the reasons that I did get out of the military was because I needed a break from it altogether. I was kind of tired of living the consistent lifestyle for a while, and I kind of wanted to be able to relax a little bit. Here at the school, I am able to relax, but you do still have to follow the rubric, which is a military rubric as far as I'm concerned. So I haven't fully escaped. I still wear the uniform. I still have to muster, which is attendance in the morning. It's required. I still have to stay and watch. I have to standing tons of watch in the military, different things like that. So I thought that I was escaping, and then I got here and realized that this is just, it's just a part of the maritime lifestyle. So regardless of whether I like it or not, you have to adapt to it because it will lead you to success in the future. So if there's anything that I dislike about the regiment, it's the fact that I have to kind of do this again, but it's not that big of a deal at all.
Arden? Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, so my favorite part of the regiment is same as Steve. Everything's planned out. You just gotta work as hard as you can and get it done. And my favorite part of the regiment is the end goal, which is my unlimited third mate license, which is gonna carry me along my career. And you know, if you try to get that same license on your own outside of a maritime academy, it would take you well over a decade if you wanted to try and work your way up. Me being female, it would probably take even longer. So this is like putting me above that glass ceiling when I get out. So my least favorite part of the regiment is all of the silly rules. Like you have to wear this pair of socks that's this color. You have to wear this pin on this side of the collar. It's you can't walk on this pathway. Well, why? Obviously, I know in the end, I'll understand that it's teaching me a lesson. But right now, a mental hurdle for me is getting over the little rules and the little confines.
And it looks like you get there. Charlie's still here.
I gotta say, it teaches you a certain amount of discipline that is very, very important when you are out to sea or doing whatever you're doing in industry. Having that discipline of just, you know, saying of just, you know, regardless if the rule makes sense or not, being able to follow it, you know, it could end up saving your life in some, you know, weird backwards way. Like squaring corners, that actually has a legitimate use.
Can you explain what that is?
If let's say you're on a ship, you're underway, going to wherever, all of a sudden the lights go out and you smell smoke. There's a fire on board and you can't see anything. The way ships are designed, that if you square a corner, if you square enough corners and stay to either side of the bulkhead, you will hit a door, and that door will lead outside, and you'll be able to breathe fresh air and get in a lifeboat and get off. That is exactly why you do that. And if you're on a firefighting crew on a ship and you're on the ground, keeping your hand up against that wall is going to save your life, because a wall is going to lead to a door, and a door is going to lead to a new room. And if you don't want the room, you go back the other way, and you will eventually find your way out.
That's a great answer. Charlie, while I have you real quick, I've been getting a lot of questions for specifically marine engineers. If you wouldn't mind, I'm going to ask you two questions at once. I'm sorry, they're very
No worries. Yeah, go right ahead.
One, what type of jobs do marine engineers do aboard a ship? That's a huge question. And two, do you think, in your kind of experience, are more marine engineers going out, shipping out, or are they staying landside when they graduate from MMA?
Those are two fantastic questions to whoever asked them.
Thank you.
So first question, what type of jobs? Well, I obviously don't have a job yet, but while I was cadet shipping, I was surprisingly given a lot of jobs that most of the actual legit engineers would have. So I got an opportunity to replace a sump pump, which transferred a mixture of oil of dirty fuel and oil that was then used to power our water tube boilers, which heated the entire ship. And replacing that pump, I had never done that before. I know what pumps are, I know how they work. I've never, I've touched a couple, but I've never taken a pump out, taken it apart, and then replaced it with a new one. And there was a second engineer, the engineers were actually transferring. So one was getting off and one was getting on. So it was all kind of confusing. So no one was there to help me, and I figured it out on my own. And it was, I had not been so proud of myself before. And so stuff like that, you know, general maintenance. I will say, and this is, you know, I was disappointed to hear a lot, you know, about this, but a lot of people think that, oh yeah, you work on engines, you replace big parts. And that is true to some extent. You do a lot of maintenance, but the manufacturer of a lot of your big mechanical parts will come in and overhaul things, but you do help out a lot. Like I got to help Caterpillar basically rebuild one of our generators, and it was awesome. It was super, super cool. And I'll never get that experience anywhere else.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. As far as jobs that marine engineers could do, one thing that I find is super valuable, especially about the marine engineering technology major, because my major is ABET accredited, I can work out to sea or on shore regardless, because I get, we have other engineering courses that are more math based, and then a lot of classes that are really just purely hands-on. So you have you're almost getting 2 degrees for one. I myself, I'm actually going on to get my master's after I graduate. So I'm very excited for that. And while I'm doing that, I'm hoping to, get some sea days under my belt as well. We'll see. But one of a graduate that actually spoke in one of my classes of Maritime 2015 is actually working with the offshore and onshore wind turbines, and he loves it. And he's applying almost literally everything he knows. So you could be onshore, out to sea, and you'll still be using these skills. And I think it really prepares you for literally anything. So to you engineers out there, you're really coming into a good program.
Thank you, Charlie. That's great. I just wanted to step in for a second. I know our time is flying by and there's still some questions. The 4 of you guys, if you wanted to take a quick look at the question and answer and see if there's any questions that you guys can jump in and answer. We've been answering them as we're going verbally, but also typing them. So do check the answered section if you can see that as attendees. We want to make sure that your questions are answered, but in the next 6 minutes, we've kind of encompassed a lot here. We just wanted to kind of make sure that we're buttoning up the loose ends. But I do want to mention that next week, we've had a few questions about military options, NROTC, JRNROTC. Next week at this very time, next Thursday, we're going to do an entire hour segment on military options. We're going to be sending out those communications here starting in the next few days. So keep a lookout for your email on all of that because we're going to really dive into depth. We're going to have 4 of our students that are in a military track that are going to be best answering those questions. But if you have any questions, I know it looks like Elizabeth had put in the chat, Lieutenant Gray is our NROTC specialist and his email is in there. You can get in touch with him. And that way, if we don't get a chance to really answer those, you're able to kind of talk to them about that. But I wanted to kind of take one last moment and ask our 2 athletes about what it's like to be an athlete and be in the regiment. Is that even possible? Do we have students that do that? It sounds like we do, and I know we do, but I want to hear from the athletes that we have just to kind of round that out. Who wants to start?
Although, I mean, I'm on the sailing team, and honestly, it actually makes the regiment easier because during like RPT, regimental preparatory training, and MUG month, your midshipman under guidance month, that's like your initiation period into the regiment. It's kind of challenging, but sailing took me out of a lot of regimental obligations, which was really nice. Like, bye guys, can't see you at muster, gotta go sailing kind of stuff. And you also get a lot of support from your team because you're going to be on a team with other people who are in the regiment, so they understand you, they know you're going through all of it together. It can get, again, it's overwhelming at first because you're balancing so much at once, but you get into a groove and you get used to it. I would say it's completely worth it, and fitness is very important when you're in the regiment as well. So being on an athletic team, thumbs up to that.
Awesome.
I was literally going to say the same exact thing. So I run cross country here, and yeah, during my MUG month, it was great. Took me out of so much stuff. And you're like, oh, it's going to take up so much of my time. I need to do homework. yeah, you're on the bus, do homework. It's great. You know, you can do all that stuff when you're traveling and still be with your friends who actually end up, a lot of the upperclassmen are on the same bus as you. So you're doing homework, you start struggling, you just ask your friend next to you who's an upperclassman, he'll start helping you. It's kind of cool. Almost like, yeah, have all the tutors on the bus with you, you know? So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely doable. And I highly recommend doing the sport because it's a lot of fun. And it's like we keep saying, the regiment's like a brotherhood kind of thing. Yeah, having a sports team and the regiment, yeah, it's nothing like it. It's great. So
I can definitely attest to what Joe is saying. You know, having your weekends off, not having to deal with the mug month stuff. You know, just sleeping in comfy hotel beds, eating whatever you want. You know, it's pretty awesome. And you know, especially having those upperclassmen in the bus, like I was able to get through fundies doing that, and which is a class that everyone will take, both deck and engine. It's called the Fundamentals of Engineering, and that's just, you know, an introduction to shipboard engineering. So, and it can some aspects of it can be a little challenging, but you know, everyone helps each other, especially the upperclassmen.
One thing I wanted to point out, when these fine students have referenced mug month, it means midshipman under guidance. So when you come here as a freshman, you'll do that 10-day RPT, regimental preparatory training. I believe Mass and Sundy Maritime call it INDOC, so it's a very similar process. You're not officially in the regiment of midshipmen until the completion of this mug month, this midshipman under guidance. It's usually the first 6 weeks of that fall semester. And typically once you've made it through those 6 weeks, actually I should sort of throw this out to you. I know we only have 2 minutes, so I'll give you a quick answer. But typically things get a little bit easier once mug month is over. Is that right?
yes, things get a lot easier. And so during mug month, you can't leave campus. You have to stay on campus. Right when mug month ends and you do your ceremony, yep, you can get in the car with your parents and go home for the weekend, but you're gonna have to be back like that Monday, or usually it's a 4-day weekend, so I guess that Monday night. So yeah, but it gets a lot easier. You're starting to start relying on yourself more. You have to do things yourself, and so it gets a lot easier.
Well, awesome.
Yeah,
go ahead, Kate.
I was just saying, I know we're running out of time, and if any of our attendees need to move on, we very much understand. We're going to keep this open for another few minutes while our panelists kind of wrap up and answer some of these questions, whether they're typing their answers in or verbally stating the answer, just so that we can make sure that you guys get what you need out of this, because this is for you. So we're going to keep it open for another few minutes, but if you guys need to run as an attendee, please do so. We very much understand. Thank you all for attending. Let us know if you have any other questions going forward. We can always direct it to these guys.
One last thing I wanted to say really quickly, if you'd like to get in touch with an admissions counselor to get this process going, or maybe you've already applied and have been accepted and just want to know, what to do next. I've sort of renamed myself, well, it's on this side, renamed myself with my email, elizabeth.allaby@mma.edu. So, admissions is here for you. That's why we put really cool events like this on.
I'd like to address one question I keep seeing on here, like, what takes so much time when there's why does it take up a lot of your time? After those 6 weeks of mug month, if you don't go into a leadership position, no, it doesn't take up much of your time anymore. I mean, you really just go to muster and commandant's time. That's kind of it. You don't really have any more things, and you just wear your uniform to class, and you still have your personnel and room inspections. So you got to make sure you still look good and have a clean room. But that's really it. You're not just like 24/7, regiment stuff in a tiny bit of class. It's more classes than regiment stuff once you get through mug month. So
Yeah, and with like COVID, normally you'd have muster every morning, but because of COVID, we only have muster once a week, which is kind of nice, just to limit the social distance, to make better social distancing. But yeah, muster's at like 7:10 in the morning, or you may have like watch. You have to stand watches on the ship. That's another like regimental obligation. You need 200 watch hours to graduate, which is totally achievable. I know tons of seniors who have like 300 watch hours. Yeah, but yeah, it's really not that bad. Over time, it just feels like college with a uniform.
Also, I wanted to add one more thing to the military thing, because people forget about the Coast Guard, and believe it or not, you can actually, with a license degree here, actually, I think any degree almost, you can actually go into the Coast Guard through the MARGrad program straight through after MMA. So a lot of people forget, they don't even think about the Coast Guard, to think Navy, Air Force, whatever. But you know, the Coast Guard is still an option, and I highly recommend it. I'm actually going to probably go into the Coast Guard after I'm done here. So just wanted to put that out there. Coast Guard's also a good option that you can still do very easily through MMA.
Yep, it's through the OCS, the Officer Candidate School. So if you go to a maritime academy such as Maine Maritime, that is an option open to you. Certainly the Coast Guard is very interested in students who already have a lot of the Coast Guard requirements and credentials, as your licenses would give you.
Yeah, and the great thing actually with the MARGrad program, you don't even have to go through OCS. You don't know boot camp. You do
awesome.
your boot camp here, and you still go through training. You have to go through training there, but you go to the Coast Guard because, you know, we're studying all the Coast Guard, like, I guess, rules and stuff, if you want to say, and we're such a huge asset to them. So they take us usually, and we'll be doing, if you go through the MARGrad program, you do ship inspections, like COIs and all that. But if you want to be more on the Coast Guard cutters, you have to go through OCS because that's how it usually goes.
Stephen, it looks like there's a question in the Q&A directly towards you about facial hair. Did you see that?
No, I did actually. Give me a second. Where's it at the bottom? I see
It's
Steven.
at the bottom. Yeah, near the bottom now.
I see Stephen with facial hair. Can we have beards while in the regiment, or do you need a waiver? I actually asked about a waiver during my RPT experience, and I'm not really 100% sure about the waiver. In the military, I actually did have a waiver because my face usually breaks out if I run a razor across it. But I have been using electrical clippers in order to cut my face down as close as I possibly can to my skin. The reason that I currently have a goatee is because we are back in November. We actually did No Shave November, and if you donated money to a specific fund, a certain amount of money, you are allowed to grow out your beard during that process. And if you donated a more extensive amount, which was $60 around that time, we were allowed the privilege to keep the goatee throughout the entire year, this entire school year. So next year, when you see me freshman year, if you do attend Maine Maritime Academy, which I highly hope you do, I will not have this on my face. I will probably look a little bit different. I am going to be clean shaven next time you see me. So
I've been graying out my beard too.
I was going to ask you specifically, Arden, what the female equivalent was. Can you have dyed hair?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, because for obviously with girls it's different. You can cut your hair above the collar, but what most girls do is they tie their hair back when you're in uniform. So, yeah, you just want to have your hair in a nice clean bun, usually low bun because you have to wear a hat. So, you just need to put your hair up. For nails, you can't really have like bright colored nails, but you could do like a nude shade if you wanted. And the rule is that you can't have your nail like a 1/4 inch above the nail bed. So no long gel nails, none of that. Which we're going to be working on the ship and all this stuff. So you don't really need fancy nails anyway. They'll just get ruined. And then like for makeup, you can wear makeup just subtle. So like usually I'll wear a little mascara, a little lip gloss, a little tinge of eyeshadow, but nothing too flashy.
Thank you. I just wanted to give it a fair shake, but
This question's come across a few times, so I want to make sure that we get to it. What are the qualifications if you wanted to be in the commanding roles in the regiment?
I mean, this would also be a good question for Joe because he's the one with the bars right now. But I assumed a command position my sophomore and junior year in my company as the adjutant, and so my duty was to make all the watch bills for my company, and which was it tested my time management skills because you really have to balance, the people who have had watch versus people who haven't had watch, and you have to keep track of your entire company, which I think at the time was about 110 people. I don't quite remember, but it was enough to get me a little off my seat, for lack of a better word. Just put yourself out there, apply for different positions, just pretty much be enthusiastic about it. I mean, there's no real, they're not looking for one, right candidate. You have to be, motivated and willing to do it. So I hope that answers your question. And, maybe Joe can say a little bit about it too, because he's actually in the wedge.
Yes, I highly recommend take all the leadership like you can possibly get out of the regiment, because it's well worth it. Coming out of high school, and I even went to community college before this, and I was just quiet and really shy, and just like, no one, I don't want to be in front of anyone. I don't want to, no one look at me, and, it's really brought me out of my shell. Like today I was, in front of everyone, like running muster. When I first got here, I would have been like, you're joking if someone told me that. So, I was still so shy when I came here, and it really brings you out of your shell, and it teaches you so much stuff, like especially before you get out. And like I keep saying, before you get out in industry, because this is the place to learn and make mistakes. So I highly recommend take all the leadership stuff you can get, especially if you're a quiet person, because it's just going to bring the inner leader out, and the strength you've always had is going to bring that out. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
definitely. And the wedge that Joe, and I think even Charlie mentioned too, the wedge is sort of the term for the leadership, the student leadership that are in the regiment. And they actually just had that change of command, which is why Joe is new to that position. So even if you are a voluntary reg, for example, you're not in the reg because you're getting that unlimited tonnage license, you still have the same leadership opportunities available. So that's something that's nice. I think we'll do one final question, and then I think we're gonna close this out. But for those of you who have stayed, I just thought you might benefit from this. What do you do on the ship? And if I can move the right direction, it's this thing behind me, our 500-foot long training ship. So I know some of you have, specifically only Charlie has actually had the summer training cruises, but for the freshmen, what does that training look like right now while you're on campus? Go ahead, Charlie.
Well, I'm still waiting to take my junior cruise, but for what I have done, you will do, let's see, freshman, sophomore. You will have freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior maintenance. So all 4 years. Freshman maintenance, you work with the juniors and you just kind of watch them do their thing. You do get to, there is a lot of hands-on stuff, but it's more of a teaching, it's more of a learning experience, and the juniors are teaching you. And then and then as you just move forward, they just become a little bit more and more advanced. I remember my sophomore year maintenance, I got to put together a sea strainer that was taken apart, and it was a candlestick sea strainer, which means that there's basically about 100 individual filters that are all packed into this one cylinder, and they are impossible to get to stay still. So it's and we finally figured out a good method for securing them. But it was a great opportunity to learn something new. As far as your training cruises go, my freshman cruise was one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever had. We went over to Europe, and we just had the time of our lives. And as far as working goes, again, it's a lot like freshman maintenance, where you kind of follow the juniors around and learn what they're doing, and then they show you what to do, and then you just basically replicate it. And I found it to be a very rewarding and timely experience, and I think you will as well. And there are memories that you'll make that you'll never forget, and there are skills that you will obtain that you will never lose. So, I think, you're really going to benefit from a lot of these different experiences.
Charlie, I'm just going to follow that up. Charlie was our student takeover on our social media today. And so if you look up either on Facebook or on Instagram, Maine Maritime Academy admissions, make sure to add that admissions portion to it. You can see some of the photos and some write-ups that he had done throughout the last few summers. So his co-op and his ship experience. So it's really great to kind of round out the day with talking to him in person, along with reading those stories. So if you haven't checked them out, definitely take a look. Did you
I want to add something with, sorry. I want to add something about VOT, and because we don't cruise on the ship, the training ship, so we have to go and get our own co-ops. So that's how we get our sea time, because we still need sea time, we still need watch hours, and we still do a sea project, but we do it with a company, and a great, you learn so much. I was able to do one before COVID hit, so I went with American Cruise Lines in Alaska, and that was phenomenal. But I learned so much. I feel like I learned more than I did the whole entire years at school almost, because you're actually getting a real life experience. And like we had a fire on board and a stowaway the time I was there. So I learned so much. And yeah, I know it was crazy.
Sorry, a stowaway?
Yeah.
Your stories, when you all come back in the fall, be it from the training cruise or from cadet shipping or co-ops, blow me out of the water, unintended.
Well, we could be here all night talking about these stories, but I know the four of you guys have some homework to do, speaking of time management and probably some regimental duties. So we're not going to hold you all night, but we appreciate all that you have given to your experience here. And I've changed my name as well to my email address. So if any of our attendees want to be in touch with us, if you have more questions for our panelists, put their names in or mention something that they've mentioned, and we can connect you with them so you can hear a little bit more from them, because we want to be as open and transparent as to what we have to offer here as we can. So thank you all for listening and for going over time. And I know everybody's got things that are putting on their plate. So appreciate everybody's attentiveness tonight.
And for asking all your great questions. So this was really for all of you. So thank you so much for helping us do the question load. Have a good rest of your night. Be in touch with us. Stay safe. Be it from the weather.
See you next week for the military options for those of you that have more of those questions.
Yeah. Have a good